Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Conan. Today, I'm going to be breaking down Nuggets versus Clippers. Immediately when the bracket was set, this was the matchup that I was most excited for because it's two very different teams coming from very different backgrounds into this matchup. The Nuggets, of course, came into the year after falling out in the second round last year and having a pretty disappointing offseason. A lot of people thought this was going to be a big regression year from the Denver Nuggets, but all throughout the year, they remained in that fight for a top 2 seed, mainly because of Nikola Jokic being historically dominant, becoming the first center ever to average a triple-double and doing it while putting up about 30 points per game on crazy efficiency. Right there was gilgeous-alexander the entire year for the MVP. You also got some great play from Jamal Murray at times, Christian Brown's improvement, which was substantial, way more than I thought. Really solid contributions from like MPJ and Aaron Gordon. Michael Malone, being the steadying force at the head coach spot. And overall, they were holding down pretty solid. But later in the season, they started to slip, and chaos specifically struck after a 4-game losing streak that resulted in Michael Malone being canned 3 games before the end of the regular season, throwing them into a lot of turmoil, and ultimately they fall to the 4th spot here to face off against the Clippers, who similarly came into year with lower expectations than years past. But lower expectations for the Nuggets is like a 3 to a 5 seed, while for the Clippers, it meant a lot of people thought they would end up in the lottery and maybe give the Thunder Cooper flack. And the big reasoning for this was that Kawhi Leonard's status to enter the season was completely up in the air. Basically, they said he's injured, he's out indefinitely, we don't know when he's going to be back. Paul George left. They had a lot of changes to the overall supporting cast. There was a lot of pressure on James Harden, Norman Powell, Zubac to elevate this team, and guess what? They did. All 3 of them played really well throughout the season. Of course, Zubac and Norman Powell had some of the biggest improvement out of anybody in the NBA. Chris Dunn, Derrick Jones Jr., guys like that created this lockdown defensive identity, and then Kawhi Leonard came back and they surged up the standings, and he's playing some of the best basketball we've seen from Kawhi in quite some time at this moment, allowing them to steal the 5 seed in Game 82 against the Golden State Warriors with that win in overtime. Which brings us to a 4-5 matchup between the Nuggets and the Clippers, the first time these two teams have played in the playoffs in 5 years. The last time was in 2020 in the bubble when the Clippers might have blown a 3-1 lead. I'm sure you remember that series, and I'm sure anyone left in the Clippers roster from that time. Of course, these teams look vastly different since that series, but I'm sure Clippers guys have some revenge on their minds. And just in general, this is a highly important and very pivotal series for both these franchises. If the Nuggets lose, it solidifies the need for sweeping changes in personnel and could lead to drastic moves. We already saw some of that with them firing Michael Malone and getting rid of Calvin Booth. Whoever comes in next as their general manager, if it is a first-round exit they're coming off of, I think Jamal Murray could get dealt, Michael Porter Jr., both of them. A number of guys could be gone. Basically, anybody but Nikola Jokic, I'd imagine, would be on the table. For the Clippers, if they lose, it's another disappointing end to an impressive Clippers season. They've had a number of these in the Kawhi Leonard era. It's just never resulted in anything. And this time, especially if they lose in the first round with a healthy Kawhi Leonard after how good they've looked recently, you have to start to kind of question where could they possibly go from here to try and compete. Statistically, both teams finished 50 and 32, while the Nuggets had the 4th offense, 21st defense, and 9th net rating, and the Clippers had the 15th offense, 3rd defense, and 5th net rating. The season series was split right down the middle. Clippers won the first 2, Nuggets won the second 2, but it's hard to take too much away from those matchups because the last time they played was January 8th, over 3 months ago, and Kawhi Leonard didn't show up in a single one of those games. Not to mention, the Nuggets have a new head coach now, which also throws a massive wrench into things. But regardless, let's get into the keys to the series, and of course, the number one thing anytime you play the Nuggets is how do you slow down Nikola Jokic? He might be the best offensive player ever. A couple years ago, en route to the title, led the entire playoff field in points, rebounds, and assists. His efficiency is always elite. He just averaged a 30-point triple-double for the season. There's really nothing you can do, and it feels like right now, he's maybe at the peak of his powers. But I will say the Clippers might have the best player possible in the league right now to try and slow Jokic down at least a little bit, and that's Zubac. Zubac should at the very least be on an all-defensive team. I think he should be in depoy talks. He's been unbelievable this season, and he's had some success against Jokic. Over the last couple of seasons, Jokic has put up crazy numbers against LA like he does against everybody, 29 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists, but his efficiency is a lot lower than usual, and specifically when he's being guarded by Zubac, he shot just 38.3%. That, for guarding Nikola Jokic, is like mind-blowingly good. If you can get him anywhere even close to that, if you can just get him below 50% on possessions, that is a massive win because, again, Jokic just elevates every time he gets to the playoffs. you got to try and slow them down a little bit if you're going to knock off Denver. And Zubac gives you at least a chance, and that's really maybe all you need, because at the same time, you've got a lot of defenders you can throw at him with great hands if you want to send some more pressure, like a Chris Dunn, a Derrick Jones Jr., a Kawhi Leonard, or Ben Simmons, and those guys are going to be great too for trying to slow down the other options offensively for Denver, like Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, Russell Westbrook. Denver's offense can be a well-oiled machine, but LA is one of these defenses where they force turnovers, they make you really uncomfortable, they can really gunk things up, especially with a coach like Tyronn Lue, who's got a wealth of experience going up against a coach in David Adelman, who's never done this before. He's coached 3 games in the NBA, so he's going to have to adjust to what will probably be a swarming defense, and has been all season for LA. And things can especially become complicated if Jamal Murray is not 100%. He dealt with a hamstring injury, he came back, played the last couple of games, didn't play a lot of minutes, he didn't look bad, but I'm not certain that he's quite to the level they need him to be to give the Clippers real issues. They need him to be the playoff Jamal Murray that we'd gotten used to prior to last season, where he really struggled and also didn't really ever look 100%. The guy that was just putting up 30 bombs left and right when we saw them go on a run to the finals. They need that Jamal Murray against this defense, and that might be a tall order. Now, he's going to have a week off leading into the playoffs, so that should hopefully help. I want to see Jamal Murray be Jamal Murray, but if he's not, things get a lot more complicated. Just in general, regardless of Jamal Murray being healthy or not, they're just really going to need Jokic to be dominant and pick apart this great defense, which luckily for them is what he does best. I've never seen a defense that Jokic can't really give issues to. Last year, the Timberwolves were probably the best ever defense I've seen played on Nikola Jokic and this Nuggets team, and even still, they had some really big games. They had some big-time performances, and Jokic was still doing what he does. It's impossible to ever stop him, but you can try and slow him. And Zubac gives you a chance. Now, the one complication here is that Zoo is the only guy who really stands much of a chance against Jokic one-on-one. So if for some reason he gets into foul trouble, it could get really tricky because their backup big is Ben Simmons or it's Drew Eubanks. And neither one of those guys is going to stop Nikola Jokic at all. Now, I've seen a lot of people say that, and yeah, that is a concern, but at the same time, like, Zoo only averaged 2.1 fouls a game and only fouled out twice the entire year, so I'm not banking on Zubac fouling out if I'm a Denver fan, but it is, I guess, something to keep a little bit of an eye on. One stat that is good for Denver is that the Clippers allowed the 8th highest field goal percentage within 5 feet this season, and Denver is the team that looks to score inside the most in the league. They led the league in points in the paint, with Russ attacking downhill. Christian Brown is awesome around the rim. Of course, you have Nikola Jokic, Aaron Gordon great in that dunker spot. They do a lot of actions down there, but that might change with the Clippers probably sending a lot of help in the paint, because the Nuggets don't shoot a lot of threes. They shot pretty well this season, but they're not a volume 3-point shooting team, and especially if guys like Russell Westbrook or Peyton Watson are in and out there on the perimeter, I'm certain the Clippers are just going to let them shoot. They're going to have no issue with letting those guys take threes. If they make them, then, you know, props to them, and that also provides other issues for the Nuggets, because those are 2 guys they're going to need, but if they're just being left wide open in offensive liabilities, Jamal Murray's not looking like himself, this defense is causing them to spiral, how do you keep those guys in the game? Then on the other end, the question is, can the Nuggets elevate their defense? They've been, as you probably noticed, really rough defensively this season. They ranked 21st in the NBA. They really don't have a stopper who plays consistent minutes. Brown is solid, but not elite. Aaron Gordon, nowhere near his typical defensive level. He's always kind of been that guy for them to throw out like a Kawhi Leonard, and he's had some success in the past, but he's been so far below his usual defensive standard this season. Jamal Murray's not really a stopper. Of course, Jokic isn't. Michael Porter Jr. Peyton Watson's probably their best defender, but again, we talked about, is he going to be a liability out there on the offensive end? And tasking with guarding like a Kawhi Leonard is a pretty tall order for a young guy playing up against one of the best playoff risers of this decade, who's kind of playing out of his mind at the moment. I do believe Aaron Gordon can turn it up more than we've seen from him so far this season, but Kawhi's been looking so unstoppable, and I do really worry about the regression we've seen from AG on that end. Also, Harden has been so potent in the PNR with Zubac, who's playing better than ever. You've got a scorer like Norman Powell having his best season to play off of. It's a really scary attack, and it might not look like it if you take a look at their season-long offensive rating, which is about middle of the pack, but over the last 15 games, they've been the best offense in the sport. They've got the best net rating in the sport, so the Nuggets are really going to need to elevate on that end, and we've seen the Nuggets elevate defensively in the past. Of course, in their championship run, they took a big-time jump from a middle-of-the-pack defense to one of the better ones. Last year, they took a bit of a jump as well. I think they were like 8th in the regular season and ended up 6th in the playoffs, so they've improved, but of course, this defense is pretty far worse than the 2 of those. They rank in the bottom third starter of the NBA at the moment. It's not like they have Michael Malone, who is kind of one of the architects of them leveling up on the defensive end when the postseason rolled around. One thing I will say is that the Clippers' offensive rating over those 15 games has not come against the best competition. So if you're a Nuggets fan, maybe you kind of hope that the offense can slip a little bit. Their offense in February was just 19th. They had multiple 3-game skids. It was not looking good, but that was also before Kawhi Leonard really started cooking like this. So, I mean, if Kawhi's playing at this level, there probably is like no consistent answer to what the Clippers can do offensively. One thing I guess you could note if you are a Nuggets fan is that the Clippers are shooting 43% from 3 over these last 15 games. That is a really high number, and maybe you hope that some of the regression kicks in, like Chris Dunn isn't shooting it as well, or Derrick Jones Jr. Of course, it's not been James Harden's most efficient season. He's been better as of late, but we know historically he's had some issues in the playoffs, so maybe you could hope that something like that happens. But if they keep shooting the way that they have, if they keep being this well-oiled machine, then Denver is going to need to not only elevate their defense, they're going to need it to skyrocket ASAP. One thing that plays into their favor defensively is that there's no stretch big for the Clippers. Obviously, Zubac, Eubanks, Ben Simmons aren't really shooting any outside jumpers, so Jokic isn't going to have to go out there and move his feet on the perimeter against these shooting bigs. He can more so stay down low, anchor things, and Jokic does have some pretty solid moments when it comes to just playing down low and being a big body. Even though it really hasn't been an issue this season since he returned from injury, obviously with the Clippers, you always have to wonder, are injuries going to pop up specifically for Kawhi Leonard? No reason to think he won't be healthy for this series or that he's going to miss any games, but I always feel like I'm just like waiting for something to happen because it's consistently been a theme. Even when Kawhi goes in the playoffs and it's like, hey, he's relatively healthy, something pops up. I'm crossing my fingers, knocking on wood, everything that Kawhi Leonard is able to stay healthy and have a real playoff run for the first time in forever, but I am still always worried that something's going to happen. A couple final notes before I get into my prediction. I'm curious as to see what Michael Porter Jr. does in this series because to me, he's in kind of one of the toughest spots. This is a big prove-it matchup for him. They need him to show up. They need him to perform, especially if Jamal Murray isn't really himself. And if he doesn't, I think he's kind of the first guy that we expect to get moved this offseason, dealt somewhere else to improve this team defensively, bring in more depth, whatever is the case. Maybe they want to swap him out for another star. I don't really know what the new general manager is going to want to go for, but it feels like if Michael Porter Jr. specifically has a disappointing series and they end up falling short, then he is going to be the first guy shipped off. So this is a big time prove it, a high pressure series for him. Of course, he's played in the finals, so he's been here, done this before, but they're really going to need a lot out of him against a lot of lengthy defenders over there on Los Angeles. Aaron Gordon being a knockdown shooter now also adds a very interesting wrinkle to this series. On the year, he's shooting 43.8% on one of the highest marks of his career, 3.4 attempts a game. It's still not a lot, but I mean, it's very respectable the way that he shot the ball. He's been lights out, one of the better shooters on this team. In the past, teams would kind of live with that Aaron Gordon corner three. I wonder if they're willing to live with that. If they're going to double off of him, send a couple guys at Nikola Jokic, especially if he does start getting to go against Zubac, or for some reason he's in and Zubac isn't, maybe he's in foul trouble, I don't know. Aaron Gordon, if he can make them pay a lot from the outside, if he can make that an issue, something they have to worry about, and force them a little bit more out of the paint to guard him, then I suddenly think things become a lot more easier for the Nuggets. He's going to have to come up big for them in this series. Not just on that end, of course, defensively. He's probably going to get tasked with Kawhi Leonard, so they really need him to step up both ways. And of course, you got to wonder, what do we get from Russell Westbrook? He's had some really high highs this season, some very low lows, like that Timberwolves game. They're going to need a much more consistent, controlled version of Russ. I mean, we saw him play really well and really clamp up defensively a couple years ago for the Clippers in that series against the Suns. If he could provide any of that energy, it's a massive boost for Denver. And then, of course, one of the final things I want to bring up is the coaching matchup we talked about a little bit earlier. Tyronn Lue has done such an awesome job this season. If the Clippers ended up as like a 3 seed, I feel like there would have been a lot more buzz for him as coach of the year. And I really don't know what's going to happen with David Adelman. It is so weird that they fired Michael Malone right before the end of the season. They're hoping it jolts the team, and they are 3-0 under him against the Kings, the Grizzlies, and the Rockets, who played their starters for like the first half and then started to sit some guys. So there haven't been like any big time matchups. The Nuggets have looked fine. I mean, nothing's looked too different from them, taking a look at the way that they've schemed things up. The question really for me is just, how is he going to adjust if they go down 0-2 in a series, or if they fall and lose game 1, or they go down big in a game at halftime? Like, what changes does he make? Is he ready for this moment against one of the more experienced coaches in this Western Conference? Real quick before I hit you with my official prediction, I want to go ahead and thank Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video and let you know about their upcoming extender promo for the playoffs. Because going into this postseason, Underdog is offering boosts that grow as every series progresses to more games. This weekend, every user is going to have a boost token available to utilize on any of the game 1s. And if you go ahead and use that one, you'll be rewarded one for the game 2s, and so on and so forth. And each token will give give you more and more of a boost. You use the one on the game 2s, you'll get one for the game 3s, and so on and so forth. The longer these series go, the more boost you get, and with the matchups we have right now, I think we could see some game 6s and some game 7s. For me personally, in game 1 of this series, I'm going with the higher on Jokic's points. It's the Joker. He's very capable of scoring 30 in game 1, and I'm going with a double-double for James Harden. I feel like he's going to go ahead and carve up that Denver defense and rack up at least 10 dimes. Make sure to check out Underdog Fantasy for these playoffs in the extender promo, and you can use code CONE when you sign up to go ahead and get a first deposit match. Again, shout out to them for sponsoring this video. Those are the most interesting things in the series to me, and now let's go ahead and talk about a prediction. I've gone back and forth because when I take a look at this, I feel like most things do favor the Clippers. They've got the more experienced coach, they've got a more well-rounded team, they've got a deeper team, they've been playing out of their minds. Well, the Nuggets just fired their head coach. I have no idea how it's going to look for a first-time guy in the playoffs after 3 regular season games. That's basically unprecedented, but the Nuggets do have the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic. I've seen this starting lineup do insane things when they click. There's basically nobody that could beat them on a consistent basis. If they could just get like decently reliable minutes from their bench guys, if they could step up somewhat defensively, it's really anyone's series. I think this one is going to go down to the wire. I think it's going to be a 7-game series, but ultimately, I am going to go with the Los Angeles Clippers. I think LA goes ahead and gets this done from a lot of people expecting them to be a play-in team to being the squad that a lot of people thought could maybe be in the Western Conference Finals this season with the Denver Nuggets. It's going to be hard to stop Jokic or even slow him, but Zubac is one of the best guys for the job. I trust their other players to go ahead and slow down the other forms of attack for Denver. So even if Jokic is dropping like 40, 10, and 10, I think a probably less than 100% Jamal Murray is going to struggle against all the defenders they have. And Michael Porter Jr., there's inconsistencies with him, and I don't know what Aaron Gordon's going to bring, especially on the defensive end. I think this is a series where Kawhi could really go off. Norman Powell has just been so good this season too. He adds such a terrifying wrinkle with the Clippers offensively. They've been clicking. I don't think their offense is as good as the best in the league like we've seen the last 15 games, but I think it's able to do plenty to this very lackluster Denver defense. And honestly, that's kind of where it falls apart for me. I feel like they're just going to throw Jokic in a million actions, just Zubac, James Harden pick and roll over and over again, them to death, and Kawhi Leonard getting isolated on the block on the baseline and just taking those pull-up middies. I think it's going to be death by 1,000 cuts against this Clippers team. And ultimately, I do think Denver's going to put up a fight. They've shown me too much over the past couple of years. I think that they're just going to roll over and die, especially when you have Nikola Jokic. But I just think the Clippers are the better team. Go ahead and give me them. I guess you could say an upset. I haven't taken a look at like the Vegas odds or anything like that. But yeah, give me the Los Angeles Clippers to win this one in 7 games to advance and probably face Oklahoma City. And with all that being said, those are my thoughts on Clippers versus Nuggets. Let me know down below in the comments what your thoughts are. Who do you have winning and in how many games? What are your biggest keys to this matchup, especially if there's anything that you're intrigued by that I didn't mention? Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. There will be plenty of these series previews coming out throughout the week, playoff predictions, and of course plenty of playoff content when we get to the actual games covering what's going on throughout the postseason. You don't want to miss out on that. So again, subscribe. Thank you all so much for 60K. I want to do something special for that, but I guess I'll figure it out on the fly. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say back.